YouTube, what a D-Tube. Down Home News TV, I am your host, Dre. Keep up with politics on YouTube. A lot of people saying the tide is turning in Trump's favor. But this article is coming from NBC News. Title is Rep. Jim Clyburn helped Biden win young black voters in 2020. This time they're not listening. Sumter, South Carolina. Rep. Jim Clyburn was preaching to the choir, and ever since, Clyburn was the guest speaker at a black church here on a recent Sunday, telling the audience that a certain candidate for high office deserves to lose. He didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but it was clear who he meant. The Democratic congressman from South Carolina rattled off a list of ways Trump has insulted black Americans over the years. Sitting in the pews, the largely middle-aged and elderly congregates applauded the message. The trouble for Clyburn, 83, is that people he most needs to hear him weren't the ones listening. The next day, Clyburn voted for President Biden in South Carolina's Democratic primary. He held a news conference afterward and laid out his stakes. Do you want this country to be led by someone who, time and time again, demonstrates misogynistic tendencies and racist attitudes? He said, standing outside the polling place on a blustering morning in Orangeburg. Is that what you want? And how cinematic he has him standing under the Last Supper picture. Well, of course, he's in a church, but without Clyburn, there might never have been a Biden presidency. In 2020, his endorsement revived Biden's flailing campaign. Clyburn cemented Biden's status as a favorite of black voters, helping him win the South Carolina primary and vaulting him to the party nomination. Now, polling shows that young black voters are peeling away from Biden in the numbers that were Democratic officials. Clyburn, for his part, sounds indignant. Just compare Biden's history to Trump's, he says. Trump has demeaned black Americans for decades. He has, while Biden has compiled a record rivaling that of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. Lyndon Johnson. Is that the one that said we'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 50 years or longer? Lyndon Baines Johnson? I think that's the guy. Anyway, of young black voters who've grown disenchanted with Biden, Clyburn said, I want them to stand in front of me and tell me they will support that over Trump's record over Joe Biden's record. NBC News polling in 2023 found that black voters overall favored Biden over Trump by 73% to 17. But when it came to voters under the age of 34, the margin shrank. Among that slice of the black electorate, Biden's support fell to 60%. Trump's rose to 28. In 2020, Biden won 87% of the black voters, including 89% of the black voters under 29 and 78% of those 30 to 44. Any slippage from Biden's base could prove disastrous in another tight election. In 2020, Biden's victory rested on fewer than 43,000 votes in just three states: Arizona, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Clyburn is giving speeches and interviews warning black voters of what it means if they forsake Biden and allow Trump to reclaim power. He starts by reminding voters of Trump's condemnation in 1989 of the Central Park Five, the minority teenagers who were wrongly convicted of raping a woman who had been jogging in Central Park. Then came Trump's role in the birther conspiracy that falsely questioned Barack Obama's U.S. citizenship. From there, Clyburn cites Trump's false claim that a black female poll worker in Georgia in 2020 was a hustler and a professional vote scammer. I just hope that in 2024 we're not going to find ourselves as a country falling into what Germany fell into in 1932, he added, referring to the period when the Nazis came to power. Trump's campaign did not respond to a request for comment about Clyburn's critique. He has described himself as the least racist person. Let me get a sip of water. Still haven't quit dipping if y'all haven't noticed, but I'm trying, working on myself. Clyburn's arguments rest on a simple premise. Young black voters need to appreciate that the 2024 election is a choice that leaves them no practical option other than to vote for Joe Biden. No president has produced a better record since Johnson enacted his civil rights and anti-poverty program in the 1960s. Yet that's not necessarily how Gen Z and the youngest millennials see things. Many are hungry for candidates apart from the two geriatrics marching toward a face-off in November. Neither Biden's message nor the messengers are proving all that compelling, some said in interviews. When it comes to politics, young voters aren't taking cues from long-standing institutions and party leaders, a former Biden administration official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss frankly some of the president's electoral vulnerabilities. They're instead looking at people in the culture, social media influencers, grassroots leaders, and urban radio. Black voters are not going to be a rubber stamp for the party, this person added. Interviews with students at two historically black colleges in Orangeburg, South Carolina State and Claflin universities reveal a gargling generational gap at Chisholm separating what the students say is important to their lives and what older officials believe ought to be important. Biden wants to talk about broadband, the students want to talk about civilian deaths in Gaza. Democrats tout a road widening project along Interstate 26 in Columbia underwritten by Biden's infrastructure program. The students are focused on food desserts that contribute to diabetes and obesity. In our neighborhoods, we have gas stations, fast food restaurants, and liquor stores. We don't have access to the same food, said Tiara Albert, a 19-year-old sophomore at Calvin. I don't want to vote for either one, she said of the presidential contest. Asked if they believe elected officials are addressing such issues, of course the voices filled the campus conference room no. Some of the students objected to what they saw in the transactional mentality underpinning Biden's case for re-election. Goodies in return for votes. Nathaniel, an 18-year-old Calvin student, was among those whose home was wired for broadband last year. You're doing these things as a last-ditch chance to beat Trump and get over it a little bit, said Nathaniel, who wants to be a doctor and eventually run for elective office. Now you've got internet, so hopefully you can give me a vote. He said he plans to vote for Biden, albeit reluctantly. This is my first time voting. This is very discouraging to the young black voter, he said, adding that he is not confident in either of the choices. We're picking the lesser of two evils, Nathaniel said. If only young voters knew more about what Biden has done to erase billions in student loan debt, for an example, they'd feel differently, the president's allies contend. Then the Supreme Court shut that down, saying it was unconstitutional and he couldn't do it. So I'm curious on how he was able to. Maybe use his political leverage to lean against institutions. I don't know. I'll do my homework on it. But In an interview before the church service, Clyburn summoned one of his security aides, a black man in his 40s, who described his delight in getting a letter telling him that his and his wife's student loan debt, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, had been wiped off the books courtesy of Biden's forgiveness program. More of those letters will be going out before the election. At a fundraiser event in Columbia on Saturday, Biden said that 25,000 people a month will be getting letters from him saying they'll be getting relief from student loans. As some of the students are unmoved, the war in Gaza and Biden's inability to rein in Israel military is a bigger concern. Biden could do more to address the urgent needs at home if he redirected the money going toward Israel's bombardment of Gaza, some said. It's a pretty lengthy article. I'm almost done with it, but I'm just leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Down on this TV, I'm your host, Dre. Y'all have a good